Hello, everybody, and welcome to Whispers Radio here on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. I'm Jordan Cline. Whoa, I'm on webcam?
Yes.
Listen, I got a surprise. Just like you surprised me, I have a surprise for you.
You do?
Oh, are you ready for this? I don't think you're ready for this, Jelly.
Oh,
I
God.
don't.
That sounds so not right.
We picked up a new syndication.
We did?
Yes, we did. We're now on Saturday nights. Hold on, let me check the time. On PRN, the Past Radio Network, and PTVN, the Past TV Network. And you can check it out on PastTVNetwork.com. That's past hyphen, the line in the middle is hyphen.
Yes.
Okay, past-TV-network.com. And that is the largest provider of paranormal TV and radio on the web. They have 112 shows on there.
Oh, my goodness. And we are on there?
And we are now on there.
Well, hello, everybody. Come Saturday night.
Let me double check the time. Come on. And since I shut the door, it's not going to open it up for me. I think it's 8 to 9.
I'll open the door.
8 to 9 on set. No, I'd have to take the computer out. And,
okay.
Yeah, this room is killer on my bandwidth. But so we're now on, here for our lovely friends at in Wheeling, WKKX, UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, PRN, and PTVN. And that's the Past Radio Network and Past TV Network. So it's good stuff. I'm excited. Everybody's excited. It's going to be a great time. Give us a call, 304-214-1600. If you're out of the area, 1-866-514-1600. And that's a toll-free number. We are a live show tonight for those of you wanting to know. Well, today is August 1st, so if you're listening to a recording, it's not a live show. But we're running live right now.
Yes, we're live.
I did decide on a dog name, Bones.
Well, you need to hold him up so everybody on the webcam can see him.
Where can they see the webcam?
Right there, the white.
Well, I see the webcam, but where can they see it?
Right where you are. Put him on the desk. Move your mic.
Where do they go to see it?
On our website.
WKKX?
On KKX's
WKKX.com. You can see Bones sitting on the table right now. All kinds of new additions happening. It's good. Is our guest in line? Or?
No, I'm calling him now.
Oh, calling him now. I thought you called.
No.
Or, whatever. So, I hope everybody had a good weekend. I'm worn out. I went to the lake, Seneca. It was great. It was hot.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, I've been down at the river all weekend.
Yeah?
Got sunburned. And then, I've been in a play.
Really?
So
You've been in a play?
Who knew? Who knew that I was such a gifted actress?
Did all of our listeners out there know that if they go to IMDb, that our lovely producer, Lola Miller, is on IMDb?
Yes, I am.
Making out with a guy in a movie?
Well, we figured that was the best. Sex sells, and we were hoping that if we got raunchy enough, we'd actually get camera time. And it worked. So, anything for the craft. Yeah. Anything for the craft.
You're such a sacrificer.
Honest to
you hate it every second. I know. Oh, jeez.
But the sunburn, because tons of costume changes, and part of it's Hamlet, part of it I'm a bride of Dracula, so it's this big heavy velvet dress. I was on fire. What? And I mean not talent-wise.
Why don't you tell everybody where they can go to see you?
Oh, yes. It's at Brook Hills Playhouse. That's up in Wellsburg. The play is called Laughing Stock, and it really is funny. It's about a summer stock company in New Hampshire. I play this veteran actress named Daisy, and we do the second act is really funny. There's a parody of Dracul, Prince of the Undead, that is just absolutely hilarious. And then the last scene of that is Hamlet. We're doing Hamlet. So it really is funny, but it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, at 8 o'clock and Sunday at 2 p.m., the last performance. So
everybody better go see it.
yes, it's in an old barn, and it takes place in an old barn. So really didn't have many sets to build, but it really is very funny. It's very, very funny.
Awesome.
So,
our guest tonight, he is on the phone now?
yes, he is.
All right, we have Mr. Kevin Cook. His book is called Marian Apparitions Are Real, and it's Visits from Marian Jesus. Kevin, are you with us?
I'm with you.
Kevin, I got to ask, how did you get into this area of the paranormal?
Well, it was a bouncy path, actually. I've had kind of an X-Files life starting in my childhood, and I grew up in South Florida. My father was a electronics engineer, and what he did as a hobby, kind of a volunteer basis, he worked for the Coast Guard setting up their boating courses, the Power Squadron courses.
Okay.
And back in my day, at that time, Charles Berlitz wrote his book about the Bermuda Triangle. Of course, we were living next to the Bermuda Triangle. It was kind of a big issue, And I asked him, is this a valid phenomenon or not? And he said, I know you expect me, being an engineer and scientist and all this, to tell you it's all a bunch of baloney, but it's not, because when he worked with the Coast Guard, he found that 10%, from talking to admirals, he found about 10% of the phenomena, like boats that had nobody on them and no sign of a struggle, and cigarettes would be burning in an ashtray. And I know from previous smoking of many years that it would take 10 minutes to burn out. In other words, the Coast Guard cutter would come up, there was no signs of a struggle, and with sonar, radar, everything else, there was no way for those people to have gotten away from the boat far enough that they couldn't tell, within, say, the 10-minute period, for example.
Then there would still be the cigarettes in the ashtray.
Right. In other words, with the 10-minute lockdown, even if a helicopter had picked them up and run off with the occupants of the boat, they still could tell that.
They'd still be on radar, right?
Yeah, and sonar under the water. I mean, there's just no place for these people to go, right? And this happened over and over and over. And there's another side kicker in there. We lived in Plantation, Florida, which is a suburb of Fort Lauderdale. And Dad was also a million-miler on Eastern Airlines at the time. And there was a big movie at that day, Ernest Borgnine and the flight of Ghost of Flight 401, if I recall correctly. And Ernest Borgnine played the character, the Eastern Airlines navigator that went down with a plane in the Glades. This is a true story. Okay. And Eastern Airlines cannibalized the parts from the plane that went down, and they used them in other Lockheed L-1011 aircraft, and every one of those flights that used cannibalized parts wound up being haunted by this navigator.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and to bring the story up to speed with me is that
you are that navigator.
No. Our neighbors in Fort Lauderdale were actually Eastern Airline pilots who'd seen the ghost.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, that's how all this stuff come up early on in my childhood. And then in more modern times, in 2008, I was up in New York. I love New York. I'm kind of a weirdo, but I love upstate New York. And I went on a real estate buying expedition, and September 2008. And what happened is I didn't buy the real estate, but I was going to sightsee Wednesday in the Mohawk Valley, which is about 40 miles west of Albany, and then fly out of Albany that Thursday morning. But Wednesday morning, the day before, in the first 10 minutes, I run across Our Lady of Martyrs Shrine in Voorheesville, New York. And I didn't know it was there. I just flopped right into it. And I was not too long, a 2-year Catholic at that time, and I said, well, I'll go check this out. Well, Jordan, what happened was I was there for about an hour and a half total, but for the first 45 minutes, there was a cloying, powerful, just intoxicating smell of roses and flowers.
Really?
Yeah, and this went on for about, 40, 50 minutes, and I do sell plants for a living. I mean, I'm not, I have bad allergies in Texas. I'm not a bloodhound or anything, but I mean, I still, I know what's fragrant or what would, more or less be. And all I saw was pines and maple trees, and the only flowers were about 20 acres away, way further than anybody could smell. Anyhow, I went to the museum up there, and I talked to the curator, and I said, lady, what's so fragrant up here? I mean, it's just unbelievable. And she looked at me in a shocked manner, and she said, you smelled it too? And I said, well, I guess so.
live.
And what happened is she showed me on a map where it's about a 50-acre, like a plateau, and it's kind of high up. It's about a quarter to a third of a mile up. It's right in the foothills of the Adirondacks there. And there's no services going on. They had 2 chapels, but this was just during the day. There was no services or incense or anything of that nature. And she showed me on the little plot of the area where I smelled it probably in the strongest sense, and she was accurate. And that's where the first rosary was said, a Catholic series of prayers to Mary in that part of the country.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and like I say, I've been me long enough to know when I was, hit with something, unique and bizarre. And because Jordan, if I was right now, if I was in a room full of roses, I don't know if I could smell them. I mean, seriously. I take Zyrtec all the time. Down here in Texas, it's nothing but a dust bowl, hellhole down here. I mean, I love New York. But anyway, that's another sad story. If I die, I'm going to haunt New York. But,
so you go out there, you can barely smell anything, and all of a sudden you're just ambushed with the smell of flowers.
And there was only 2 or 3 people on the grounds at the time I was there, tourists. And like I say, there was just not a bunch of flowers. And she said, Carol, the curator there, she said that every 6 months or a year somebody comes in and says they smell it. I mean, in other words, she's familiar with what was going on. And it's called the odor, as it turns out, of course I researched it all, it's called the odor of sanctity, and it's a very, very frequent experience in Catholic shrines, connected with Catholic saints, not
really?
That I'm a saint or anything, but a lot, and also Marian apparitions. And I had a pre-existing interest in Marian apparitions, but this was kind of a lead-on into studying the whole field, if you will. And, Jordan, I'm not a real easily rocked guy. I'm, Army veteran, old buzzardy salesman, bench press 400 pounds. I'm not somebody that's easily shaken up, but I know something when it's...
Now, are you exaggerating right now that you bench press 400 pounds?
No, I'm really not. No.
You trying to talk tough?
No, I can do it. I can do it.
Yeah, I could say that on the radio, too.
Oh, no, that's okay.
But now we got a webcam up there, and nobody will believe me.
Oh, no, I can do it. I'm pretty good shape for my age, and I'm just a physical fitness cultist or something. But what I'm saying is, I've been in a lot of rough situations in my life, and dangerous ones, and I've never... I mean, I know when something's real. This is real. And anyhow, it was very impressive. And after I talked to the lady and came out, I sat down for about another half an hour on a bench. I was so overcome with, like I'd been blackjack from the experience. Like, what was that? And it was really pretty cool. It really was. And other things have happened to me connected with writing the book and this little experience that are pleasant, not as dramatic as that perhaps, but still pretty cool. And I can say this, from researching this material, and, I belong to a ghost hunters group and all this other stuff. I'm interested in the paranormal in general. But what I'm saying is I've never come across anything in any area of the paranormal that is as well verified and documented as this stuff.
Really?
Honestly. There's a guy that wrote the recommendation for my book. His name is Dr. Tim Barth, and he's a very prestigious academic. He's chairman of the psychology department of Texas Christian University down here, a pretty big school in the Southwest, and he wrote basically that he's amazed in his full forward to the book. It's not in this edition, just the recommendation is, but what I'm saying, no, the recommendation's on the website, rather. But Barth was late getting his assignment in. We didn't include it in the book. But what I'm saying is he's amazed, being a ghost hunter type and a consultant to ghost hunting groups, he is amazed that more people don't know about the Marian apparition field, and he's amazed that they'll go gaga over orbs or something.
Oh, yeah.
And this has got Sandia Labs engineers' testimony, blah, 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 doctors. I mean, this is really, really well documented. That's what I'm trying to say.
Now, let's talk about some of these cases.
Okay.
Now, all right, well, let's talk. How long have these been going on?
Okay, this phenomenon has been actually going on since 40 A.D., when the Virgin Mary appeared to the Apostle James. He was evangelizing Spaniards in Sargasso, Spain. That was 40 A.D. That's the first known example of this. all the way up to the present time. And it's been estimated. I have a chart in back of the book I got from the International Marian Research Institute. It's part of the University of Dayton, but it dates the apparitional events from 1900 to the present day. It's a little over 110 years, and there's about 250 that have been under study since that in that 110-year period, and it's been speculated that there's been that level of frequency throughout. So we're talking about, I don't know, somewhere in the area of 2,500, 3,000 different Marian apparitions since the beginning of this event.
Now, what do you think they mean?
I think they're nothing more, in my opinion, than God keeping his hand in, basically a reassurance kind of factor that he's still around and in charge of things. I think, in other words, he's using the Virgin Mary, in my opinion, as a messenger, basically. All the messages are fairly classical messages. There have been a lot of prophetic messages, but as far as the instructional ones, it's all pretty much classical. And, by the way, she's not trying to go into business for herself and be a goddess, so people could just save all that. It's not that.
Now I got to ask you, when you say Marian apparitions,
right,
are you talking like when people see Marian potato chips and toast?
That's mostly matrixing, Jordan. That's jumping the gun or imagination, if you will. The mind makes order out of disorder, and you look at clouds and what do you see? Well, it looks like a horse or a dog or whatever.
I know the producer of the show before this one, Kelly. She wanted me to ask. She said, I think it was her grandfather's church.
Yeah.
I think it was somewhere in Florida. Had they said that Mary was on the outside of the church, and she said she stood there for hours and just couldn't see it. She's like, "Is that it?"
Well, now is that in Clearwater, Florida? That was an office building. Oh, wait a minute, that was an office building, but.
I think it was Clearwater. I know her.
When I see Clearwater they had an office building with an image in the glass that could have possibly been construed as a Virgin Mary, but with so many objects in the world, you're going to have, like Jay Leno is always having little specials on his show where it's like some guy's got a Jay Leno kind of chin and he's on some ad and Jay will show it and stuff. So, I mean, if you want to go find an image, we could find a Jay Leno image or the Virgin Mary or a horse or, something of that nature. But what I'm saying is that's more imagination. These are pretty well documented, dead bang, realistic, very believable images.
Like Lourdes?
I'm sorry?
Is Lourdes one of the...
Yes, but there's been a lot more dramatic ones than Lourdes. Even though Lourdes has a big history of miraculous cures, I'm not actually, my patron saint is Saint Bernadette, but and that's a whole other story. But for example, one of the most powerful, let's say, verifiable images was Our Lady of Guadalupe, which happened in 1531.
Okay.
And I don't know whether you have too many fellows in that area, but in this area where I live in Fort Worth, they have a lot of Mexican Americans, and they frequently have an image of Our Lady of Guadalupe in the back of their truck windows and stuff. And you may or may not be familiar with that image. But that image is found on a cactus husk garment that a Juan Diego was the witness. They call him seers, but the seer in this case that actually the Virgin Mary appeared to. And she said she wanted him to go to the local bishop and have a chapel built on that area she was in, which was the current site of Mexico City. And this was in December of 1531. Okay. So Juan Diego goes and does this, and the bishop basically pats him on the head and says, well, thanks, you bring back some proof and we'll talk business about building a chapel there. In other words, thinking he was just touched or something.
Yeah.
And what she does, he goes back and sees her, and she arranges a bunch of roses in his tilma, and like a cloak, and he takes them back to the bishop. And once again, it's December, there's no roses growing, and there's another side kicker to it. This bishop was from Castile, Spain, and the roses he presented to the bishop were Castilian roses that he recognized from his home country there. That's number one, but it gets a lot more sophisticated than that, is when he opened the garment, this cactus husk garment, to present the roses to the bishop, there's that image that I referred to a minute ago, the Our Lady of Guadalupe, and that is on this cactus husk garment.
Really?
And, of course, that spaced them all out, and they realized this is a legitimate event. Now, here's where it gets really up to date as far as modern technology. Sandia Labs engineers have examined this garment, which is on display in the Basilica of Guadalupe right now, and it has been in constant church custody almost 500 years. There's no evidence, Jordan, of tracing or pigment on that garment. They don't know how that image was made.
Kind of like the Shroud of Turin?
Yeah.
Kind of like the Shroud of Turin, only the part about this that's a little more appealing is it's much more available for testing and what have you, being in Mexico and, not locked away somewhere in a museum. So, and the Shroud has only been, the tilma, rather, has only been under glass for the last 150, 160 years. It's not, it's been subject to heat, cold, moisture, all the things anything would be subject to.
Now, when these apparitions happen, do they happen to anybody? Do they only happen to Catholics? Are they new converts?
No, they don't just happen to Catholics. I want to stress that, too, because they do vary a lot. A lot of the apparitions have been to peasant women in France and Portugal, for example. Many apparitions from France. But like Juan Diego was actually an older guy, 57 years old, and the Virgin Mary appeared to him. But they range all the way up to the most dramatic of all apparitions, which was at Zaytun, Egypt, in the era of 68 through 70. And they've estimated as many as 14 million people saw that on Arab television.
Now, what was that?
That was that was an image of the Virgin Mary over St. Mark's Coptic Church in Cairo. It's a suburb of Cairo, Zaytun. And this, like I said, this wanted for 3 to 5 times a week for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And they had, estimating the crowds, roughly 250,000 at a time, varying times, in the square around the church. And more than that, they had another strong man in power at the time, Nasser, and he was a Muslim, basically. Egypt is 90% Muslim, 10% Coptic Christian.
Uh-huh.
And he sent special forces door to door to door, a mile square around that church to see if this was some form of holographic projection or chicanery or whatever. And he gave it, and when his investigation was completed, even this guy Nasser said this is a legit deal. The Virgin Mary appeared. That's it, buddy.
How long ago was that?
It was in 1968 through 1970. And they had another round of apparitional sightings in 2009, the fall of 2009, in another suburb of Cairo, which was also authenticated by the Coptic Church.
Well, I wonder why Egypt, when it is so primarily Muslim, that this would happen not once in a lifetime, but twice.
Well, at the time, this was right after. There's a pivotal timing aspect to her. To many of her apparitional appearances, the more major ones. And this was right after the Arab-Israeli War of 67.
Yeah.
And perhaps it was to cool the waters down. I don't know. It's hard for me to say. But one thing about it is most people don't realize this, but the Muslims even venerate the Virgin Mary themselves.
Really?
Yes, they do. And that was so. Many of the 250,000 in the crowd, the bulk of them were Muslims. And this was a authenticated event. Time magazine was there, Paris Match, which is their version of Time, if you will, German magazine Stern, and Vatican Observers. There was a bunch of people that saw that thing in 68 through 70, but I guarantee you, out of the church I go to, St. Elizabeth's down here, the Catholic church I go to, I'll bet not 1 out of 1,000 would know the Zaytun even happened, because it didn't happen in a Catholic church.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it.
Yeah, this is pretty. And this is in the middle of the book. There's some excellent pictures that I took off Arab television of the Virgin Mary as she appeared over that church.
Well, I'm in the book now. Hold on.
Sure. It's a really good picture of her, and that's the one that the people basically saw for the 14 million different witnesses of it. It's a silent apparition.
Is that the one that's kind of glowing, has the dove flying over top?
Yes.
Photo was taken of the Virgin Mary with doves gliding around her.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I'll show that to Lola.
It's pretty impressive. It really is.
Now, do we need to take a break, Lo?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. When we come back from the break, Kevin, I want to talk about the weeping statue of Mary at Akita, Japan.
Sure, you bet.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'm going to show Lola this picture. You're listening to Whispers Radio here on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog. We will be right back. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Whispers Radio here on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, also PRN and PTVN. I gotta try to work all them in there too. That's
Gotta write them down for
past
me.
radio and past TV networks.
Mm-hmm.
So check them out. We're on Saturdays with them, and whenever I don't know when we play. We play live, and then whenever Joe Montaldo wants to play us on UPRN.
I thought we were on now live.
No, we are.
Oh,
but he
okay.
plays our reruns too.
Oh, I see. Reruns.
Well,
we're into reruns.
Well, we have like 3 years worth of recorded
I know
shows.
it. I know it. It's
So-
just nice to know that you're in reruns.
It's good to like sit at home and like turn it on. You're like, hey, look, that's me. Our guest today is Mr. Kevin Cook. His book is Marian Apparitions Are Real: Visits from Jesus and Mary. We were just talking about the I can't even pronounce that. The
Akita?
well, no, before the one in Egypt.
Oh, Zaytun.
Zaytun. Yeah, in
the
Egypt.
Z place.
Yeah, I was going to say Z Town because I don't. Yeah.
Well, just a suburb of Cairo is really, Zaytun really doesn't mean anything much.
And I want to talk about the weeping statue. Now, you always hear about, I don't know, because I'm not Catholic.
Right.
So, I mean, the non-Catholics always hear the stories of, like, either the weeping statues or the ones that are crying blood and,
right.
Stuff like that. How often do the weeping statues happen?
Not very often. When I was a young guy, my ex-wife and I were living up in Maryland, and I investigated one on my own that was a statue that was bleeding at an Episcopal church, actually, at Wilmington. And, of course, I had limited testing, capabilities or verification abilities, but I did, in talking to the priest up there, I'm convinced it was a legitimate deal. And, anyway, it does happen. What happened in 73 was a nun, Sister Agnes, had a vision of the Virgin Mary while she was undergoing, or participating in devotions, and a statue concurrent with these apparitions started weeping, and they did. It went on for a sequential number of times, and there were some apparitional messages connected with it. But what happened is at the end, it was approved by the church as a valid apparition, and the tears were collected and tested and found to be genuine human tears.
Wow.
It wasn't anything that anybody phonied up. And I must stress too, the church does not really promote this that much. It's really very resistant to approving an apparition. There's only been, including Anglican and Coptic apparitions, there's only been 13 approved through the whole experience.
Now, what does it have to do to be approved?
Well, up until the 1930s, the church as a whole would approve a circumstance. But after the 30s, they delegated it to the local bishop, so that if something like this was going on, the local bishop of whatever diocese that would be would develop a committee to investigate the phenomenon. And they do what you'd expect, like in most investigations. They check the witnesses out to see about their credibility, whether they're mentally sane or prone to delusion, and whether they're trying to make money off the issue or not, and just the whole, and also, of course, find out if there's any physical manifestations any other witness saw, like the things at Fatima, for example, or the Zaytun situation I referred to. Now, there's all the details about the apparition, and once again, back to that chart in the back of the book, just from 1900 to the present, there's hundreds of them in there, or at least 250.
Oh, yeah.
And only a handful have been approved. so, like most investigations, unfortunately, in anything, they don't come to grips with it because frequently there's just not enough evidence.
Yeah, looking through, I mean, there might be one per column. Here's 3 or 4 pages that aren't even, none of them are approved.
I know, and the church, now this is another, I will admit this, and I have no good explanation. I have asked, is, for example, they approved one in 2010 that in Wisconsin, for example, Our Lady of Good Hope, or Good Help, rather, and it was on circumstances that happened in the 1850s. And, I mean, that's kind of a long time to take to approve something. In other words, what added information occurred to make that in the approved category as opposed to non-approved category? And I never got a very valid answer. Now, that doesn't take away from it, but it doesn't, to me, once an investigation's that old, I don't know about that. But
maybe they just got tired of hearing about it.
They might have. I'm sure there's a certain amount of objectivism to it. But like most of them normally don't take that long, like Our Lady of Cabejo in Rwanda, that was in the 1990s, that's already been approved. And others, the ones in Belgium I referred to earlier, they were approved. And Fatima, of course, was approved in the 1930s. So, I mean, mostly not. Most of them don't take that long a time. Now, the longest ongoing one is Medjugorje in what used to be Yugoslavia, and that's still ongoing. And for the first time in all that time, the Vatican, as a group, has put a commission under a man named Cardinal Ruini, who's going to get down to the brass tacks about whether Medjugorje is a legitimate event or what. But that's the first time the Church as a whole has undertaken that effort in all these years.
What about Apparitions of Christ? Because the title is, Mary and Jesus.
Well, many of these Marian apparitions include a visitation of Jesus, like the one in Rwanda that I'd mentioned. He was seen and passed messages on to people at the time. And Rue de Bach, which is Catherine Labour, 1830, she had a vision of Jesus as well. And a silent apparition in Knock, Ireland, in the 1800s, that included a vision of Jesus. So
that's on the back of your book, right?
Yes.
The Shrine of Knock?
The Shrine of Knock, and on the back of the book are a bunch of crutches.
Yeah, it's for those of you out there listening that don't have a copy in your hand, it looks like a little shrine built in front of a wall, and the wall is filled with crutches.
Yeah, exactly, and they're very nice. By the way, they have a medical bureau that's always been attached to the shrine, where doctors will examine alleged cures, and they've had quite a few that they've found to be of a genuine miraculous nature. In other words, where somebody really had a documented condition of such and such, and it was grievous. It wasn't just, psychosomatic or whatever.
Oh, yeah, headache. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Or, somebody that was putting it on or anything like that. And, I guess just logically, and I wasn't there to approve them, but, I mean, just logically, you're not, the crutches I'm seeing, I wouldn't be walking in there just for a lark and, now I'm, dancing on down the lane. I don't see that happening. I don't see it. But back to, I didn't finish telling you, this is the strongest.
You just sounded like one of our hosts, Bill, for a second.
Yeah.
Didn't you just sound like Bill?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, did you know I have my own radio show? Did I tell you about that?
Oh, did you? No.
It's liveparanormal.com.
Well, plug it.
Well, it's 11 Eastern on liveparanormal.com. It's Kevin Cook's Paranormal Mysteries. And
so you handle more than just these type of apparitions.
Well, I'm a Catholic, so I must confess I'm mostly a UFO guy. I'm a big UFO guy.
That's the majority of our listeners are the big UFO guys.
Well,
Yeah.
isn't there a lot of stuff going on in West Virginia? I've always heard the reps
Yes.
in Pennsylvania and West Virginia were just wacky places.
For more than just that, but we won't go into it.
Oh, that's okay. But I mean,
we almost had something really cool to talk about last week.
Yeah.
They thought, did you watch the news at all, Lola?
No.
Get out of
I
here.
was in rehearsal all
It was
week.
on Channel 7.
I
There
was in
a big
rehearsal.
object flying over the sky in Wheeling. News at 12. Yeah, it was a blimp.
Oh, well, there'll be something else.
It crashed over in PA.
It's something else. But there's some guy that was on George Norrie's program all the time that wrote Paranormal Pennsylvania or something, or that's his website or something like that. And Pennsylvania is just a hodgepodge of stuff going on all the time, too.
Yeah.
Those crazy Pennsylvanians.
I know it. I had to
Well,
put a fence up on the border.
Well, I don't know. As you could probably tell, I'm not from Texas originally. Of course, I'm
He's a crazy Pennsylvanian. Oh,
well,
no.
I'm from Maryland.
See, me too. We're good.
I split my time, and in my youth, I grew up a lot in Florida because we had an electronics plant in both places. But I really like, of course, New York. But I mean, Northeast is what I like.
What part of Maryland?
Cambridge, Maryland, right near Ocean City.
Okay, yeah, I'm from Cecil County.
Oh, yeah. Well, not too far. Well, none of Maryland's too far away.
Yeah, that's what Delaware, too.
Oh, yeah. Well,
you're from Delaware. What part? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. I mean, Cambridge is not but 20 miles from Delaware anyway, so.
Yeah, see, that's what I always said about Connecticut. Everything is 30 miles from everything else.
Well, the thing about Texas is it isn't. Everything's 300 miles away, and it's all awful. It's like a little annex of hell.
Why are you there, then? I can't.
Well, you make friends. I have a tree business, and I'm slowly
weeding
doing other
yourself
things
out.
too. I might get the tree business up and going and leave it with my partner and just try to make a living doing voiceover commercials and stuff. I don't know. Some way before I die, I'll die in New York. Anyway.
One of the ladies in our chat room, New York Lily, says that all's quiet in the city now, no sightings.
Well, something will come up.
We did have a question from Nora's boy. Wants to know if any of the appearance seem to follow or precede an event.
They do. There's a very much of a pivotal connection to this, like in Fatima, for example, that many are familiar with. There's a lot of witnesses to that too.
Really?
In 1917, she appeared to three basically Portuguese peasant children, agricultural peasant children. Sister Lucia was the primary witness, and there were many prophecies given to Lucia. And understand, she was a 10-year-old agricultural peasant kid. I mean, she couldn't know anything about. I mean, I don't even think she could spell Russia, let alone that the message the Virgin Mary gave her that Russia, through its errors, would cause a lot of havoc in the world, etc. And this kid, Russia, where's that? And she also told Lucia that there'd be a second war after the World War I that they were already in, and a greater one. And more than that, she said that there would be a great light seen in the sky, which would basically be the kickoff for World War II. And it was, because in the late 30s there was a tremendous, unprecedented example of the Aurora Borealis in Europe. And,
really?
And when Hitler was in his retreat at Berchtesgaden, he saw that, and he was transfixed. He says, now the war can begin, or something like that.
Yeah, very prophetic, yes.
Yeah, but I mean, this was a real deal. And then, of course, the third secret of Fatima is full of a lot of controversy and kind of interesting, really. There's many Catholics that don't even believe that we know the full extent of it to this point. There's a group called Fatimists that met in May of 2010 in Rome. It's kind of like conspiracy theorists, if you will.
Okay.
And there's a man named Christopher Ferrara, who's a U.S. attorney and a Catholic, who was at the conference, and he said this, quote, "The evidence points to only one conclusion. Something has to be missing. Only a minority clings steadfastly to the notion that an ambiguous vision of a bishop dressed in white outside a half-ruined city is all there is to the third secret," end quote. And that comes from the Catholic News Service. But what it is Mary appeared to Sister Lucia in the late 40s, said to get her information lined out on paper, and to go ahead and forward this information to the Vatican, which wasn't done until 1957, by the way. And it was said that after 1960, that any pope could go ahead and release the information connected with prophecies. And every pope from 1960 to the year 2000 refused to do it.
Really?
Yeah, and basically John Paul II said that the apparition had to do with the assassination attempt on him in 1981. But this is a little weak, just like this Ferrara is saying, because that's not much to keep secret after 40 years. I mean, a failed assassination attempt, big deal,
Yeah, maybe it's just been so long that it's like, why bother talking about it?
No, I'll bet you it has something to do with the Catholic Church itself.
Well, see, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Very good point. Is one of the people that were the assistants connected with, the handling of the paperwork around the third secret knows that one of the lines in the last part of the third secret, it was, quote, "In Portugal, the doctrine of the faith will always remain the same," end quote. And by the extension, if it's just the same as ever in Portugal, then where isn't it the same? And that would be in many parts of Europe where Catholicism's fallen off. There's some allusion to, these are just speculations, but there's some speculations that perhaps the church child sex abuse issues has, of course, damaged attendance and Catholicism, et cetera, it's damaged the faith, and maybe Mary was warning of such things as this. I mean, this is just speculative, understand. I don't have any, fast knowledge of it, but I do know this, that in 1984, Cardinal Ratzinger, who's now Pope Benedict, said that the third secret had to do with issues of faith. Now, that has nothing to do with somebody being, that doesn't have anything to do with an attempted assassination attempt.
Yeah.
So, and here, it's an issue that's still a controversy, if you will.
Well, I can't think of any other reason for keeping it a mystery unless they're afraid that by revealing it, it would somehow change, like the course of the church.
Well, also there's a potentiality that's been mentioned, is that it's possible that there were some apocalyptic prophecies connected with it that would be unsettling to people, and in fairness to the church, if it's going to scare millions of people, they probably would keep quiet about it.
What if it's 2012?
It could be anything. And like I say, I do take all this seriously.
Yeah.
It's just that the church does have a paternalistic role, and, sometimes it could be heavy-handed, but for the most part it's done with good intentions.
Yeah.
And,
it's not like the government keeping aliens from us.
Yes.
Well, it could be, yes. I mean, the Cortez principle is what I call that, where, Cortez came in, 300 little 5'2" conquistadors, scared 50,000 giant Indians. And it was all because they were from a different culture. And I think the government's probably scared of that too,
Yeah.
But that's a whole other show and a whole other story. But still, I think yes. I mean, if personally, if I was going to be X'd off the planet in another month, I'd just as soon not know about it. I'd just go about my little, tawdry business and, not be rattled about it.
See, and I'm such a conspiracy theorist that the thought that it was apocalyptic in nature, it never even occurred to me.
Until now.
Well, but, I'm thinking, cover up, it's got to be,
Well, it's possible. Now, you like that. You'll love this. Okay. I know we're running short of time or close to it, but there's a current seer called Pedro Regis in Brazil who's been having visions of the Virgin Mary for 5-6 years, whatever.
Uh-huh.
He predicted in his... And by the way, well chronicled, because he has a website that chronicle his messages as they go. He predicted the Gulf oil disaster and the earthquake in Haiti.
Really?
And the earthquake in Chile, all within a short span of months. Now the chances are zip that you could predict that just because you're a good predictor.
Yeah, I know. We had a good predictor just a week ago, and nothing happened.
Something was supposed to happen the 28th, 29th, or 30th, and it was supposed to be a natural disaster where thousands... Now, granted, I was in rehearsal, so I didn't pay attention to the news, but I think something would have caught my eye.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
But see, this guy's well verified. I mean, like I say, I think...
What's his name again?
Pedro Regis, R-G-I-S. He has a website.
Oh, like Philbin?
Yeah, and exactly. But I mean, like I say, they keep all these messages and they translate them into English, and they're all well chronicled. And I think the ones occurred in March that spoke of the Gulf oil disaster in July.
Wow.
So I mean, well ahead of time.
Okay.
So it's a lot of this stuff is a lot. All I'm saying is there's a richness in this whole deal. The people that would dismiss it, like with the piece of bread or whatever, they don't. If they read the book and realized the whole richness of this phenomenon, the prophecies, the cures, the witnesses, the photographs, the examination of evidence by the Sandia Labs engineers, and on and on and on. I mean, I'm just covering the tip of the iceberg of it.
Oh yeah.
If you read the whole thing, you say, "Okay, I'm in." Really, honestly, you would.
Now, tell everybody where they can get your book.
Well, my website is Marian Apparitions Are Real, same as the book's title, MarianApparitionsAreReal.com. And my show is liveparanormal.com on Fridays at 11 Eastern. So, and on the website you can easily get up with the book on Amazon, or you can just go to Barnes & Noble and just order one.
And it's, you say liveparanormal.com?
Yes, liveparanormal.com, and Kevin Cook and Paranormal Mysteries is the name of the show.
Cool.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Support our guests.
Well, thanks.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. Well, I've always had a radio itch. because a real quick story before I go.
Go for it.
When I was 20, I just gotten out of the Army, and I was working as a one-man warehouse operation, and I shipped all the orders out, and I had the job kind of mastered because I was going to night school, so I listened to a lot of talk radio. Anyway, I work on the program director at Ring Radio in Atlanta for 6 months. Finally says, okay, look, it's like a Wednesday. He says, come on, Monday you come on, I'll make you the floating talk show host, that's it, it's over. I get in there Monday, and the son of a bitch died. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. Died over the weekend.
You're kidding.
I'm not. Bill Conover was his name, and the new program director, of course, he was up to his armpits in problems, and I said, he can't be dead. I'm supposed to start today. I said, look, buddy, we don't know who you are. We got our own set of problems.
Wow.
But that would have been like starting on with the Yankees because nothing was really bigger at the time except L.A. or New York or something.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, see, we got our start. We just having a ghost group, in the area coming on the show, and they're like, "Hey, the boss wants a paranormal group or a paranormal show. You know anybody that wants or that would do it, or any psychics that would do it?"
Yeah.
We're like, "Well, if
We'll
anybody will screw it up, we will."
Well, now see, I'm trying to get an AM feed here in town, but the people at Coast to Coast, they don't want to have another one because, I feel it's too much paranormal. But I haven't talked to the right program director yet.
You'll find one.
Yeah.
Well, maybe so.
Ours
listen,
puts up
I sure
with
have
us.
enjoyed it. It's been a good show.
Ours puts up with us. Not sure why. Lola didn't even want to stick with the show after the first week. She's like, "I'll do the first couple episodes, but you guys are on your own."
Well, you know who you need to get? I've got this Susan Lindauer coming up on August 19th. She is a smoking guest. She was an envoy to the Iraqis before 9/11 and all that.
Wow.
Write that down, Lo.
Susan Lindauer, she's an excellent lady. If you want to contact me, I'll give your contact information.
Okay.
She is perfect, and she was an envoy. It's as crooked as a $3 bill. I'm serious.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Works for me.
It's 7 o'clock. We got to go, and we got to hit the news. So,
Okay.
Kevin, Cook, your book, Marian Apparitions Are Real, website, marianapparitionsarereal.com. Get it, check on it, and it's liveparanormal.com. Is that correct?
11 Eastern. Thanks.
At 11 Eastern. Is that every night?
Just Fridays.
Friday nights. All right, Kevin, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Kev.
Bye. That was fun.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, we got to go. It's 7 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, we'll see y'all.
Hey, check in next week because we got a webcam. Go to WKKX.com. You can see Listen Live or whatever, and you click on it just like you used to be able to just listen. Now you can watch and listen.
Yes,
And
you
maybe
can.
one of these days you'll be lucky enough for me to turn that camera around and show you the
No,
lucky
no,
Lola.
no.
Because at the beginning of the show it says strong adult language, violence, and brief nudity. And the only one that cusses, the only one that gets really violent,
Is Jordan.
and the only one that gets a little brief nudity.
Jordan. I've seen more back hair than I ever care to admit.
Till next week, everybody. Don't be afraid. Only believe.